Well, good afternoon and welcome to Live from the Eagle's Nest here at the National Conservation Training Center near Shepherdstown, West Virginia. We're happy to have you with us. Before we get started today, we want to thank our partners to help with this broadcast. It is the 20th anniversary year of this nest. Started in 2003, the Bald Eagles, I should say, started it in 2003. Our partners, the Outdoor Channel, the Friends of NCTC, Bald Eagles 101, the Eaglet Monsters, and all our Eagle Cam viewers over the year who keep track of the nest action and post comments, photos, videos online. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We are located in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, and the big news this year is a hatch. We had the first egg hatch on March 26th. So we'll get some looks at the 4-day-old eaglet today. We can see him in the nest there right now. He was hatched on March 26th. We're going to try to answer as many questions as we can today, so go ahead and send them in anytime on Livestream, YouTube, Facebook, whatever platform that you're on. Today we'll look at some video highlights of the past couple weeks and give you some updates on bald eagle research. So welcome again, old friends and new. So if you're new to our cam, the Eagle Cam here, we'll show you a map of where we're located. We are along the Potomac River, just about 75 miles upstream from Washington, D.C. So you see the yellow star on the map. That's the National Conservation Training Center. We're the main training facility for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We have a beautiful 500-acre campus along the Potomac here in West Virginia in the eastern panhandle, near or just north of the little town of Shepherdstown. And the Eagle's Nest is located on the western edge of our campus, about a quarter mile from the Potomac River. And we'll take a look at the Potomac itself right now. We've got some drone footage. This is kind of showing you what it looks like if you were a bald eagle flying over the river to look for some fish to feed your young ones. It looks like this. Bald eagles are a true conservation success story. Populations are rising across much of the country. Cleaner rivers and lakes are vital to their habitat. And there are 4 big factors that brought them back. In 1940, the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. Then in 1972, DDT was banned and the Clean Water Act was passed. Clean water is essential for wildlife and bald eagles are no exception. Added protections from 78 to 2007 by the Endangered Species Act listing. And then almost 30 years of reintroductions of eagles from Canada and Alaska to the lower 48 and protections on many national wildlife refuges like Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge over on the eastern shore. So those are some of the main factors that help bring bald eagle populations back today. And now we can see a feeding. We've got the adult feeding the 4-day-old eaglet here. We call them a hatchling when they first come out of the egg, and that happened Sunday afternoon. Last Friday and Saturday were very wet and rainy, pretty miserable days, but then Sunday the sun came out and about mid-afternoon the eaglet finally came through. Now it was a kind of an interesting hatch. Usually many hatches can take up to 12 hours or more to get out of the egg. Well, we couldn't see it. So we kind of jokingly called it a fast hatch. It was actually happening, but we couldn't see it. We'll show you some videos of that a little bit later on. But now you can see this young eaglet getting fed by the female here. The female is the bigger of the 2 adult eagles, and if we see them side by side, I'll point that out. But if they're by themselves, a little hard to tell. One way, though, if we can see if we get a look at those big talons, the female, folks call her Bella, B-E-L-L-A, has very thick ankles or cankles where the sort of calf, if it was a human, meets the ankle, but very thick legs, let's just say, above her talons. The male, on the other hand, his are a little thinner, a little skinnier, but they both take turns feeding the young one, and very delicate, as you can see. They just take a little piece of a fish off and give it to the young ones. And that happens, about every hour or so. And it's always fun to watch. Now the other egg, this is I should first start to say we don't know if this is the first or the second egg that was laid. First egg was laid February 15th, the second one on February 18th. However, the first laid doesn't necessarily mean the first hatched. So this is day 40. If this is the second egg that we're looking at, bald eagle eggs normally take 35 to 48 days to hatch, or incubate and then hatch, I should say. So if the egg doesn't hatch today or tomorrow, it's probably not going to hatch, meaning it was an unviable egg, not fertile. There are a number of factors, and we'll never know if it doesn't hatch why. But nonetheless, we've got one healthy eaglet that's 4 days old, and some people wonder what happens to the other egg if it doesn't hatch. It just sort of gets covered over with grass and sort of becomes part of the nest. The nest is kind of like a big compost pile. If we can take a look at that wider view of it here, Rob, we can bring up and you can really see the full size of the nest while the little guy's getting fed. That nest is about 8 feet across in diameter, about 5 feet deep, sitting up about 100 feet off the ground, 90 feet to be more exact. Our cameras are located about 95 feet off the ground in the top of a big sycamore, very old sycamore, probably well over 100 years old. And this is a great home for the bald eagles. And as I mentioned, they've been here since they started the nest in 2003. And every year they add to it. That's part of their ritual, getting back into the swing of things, into mating, into the brooding season. And go ahead and send your questions in at any time, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. And Rob, I'm having a little trouble with live stream questions in here. If somebody can give me a hand on those. I'll also be looking online. We've got Adriana and Alex helping us out today on Facebook and on YouTube. So go ahead and send those questions in anytime. Thank you, Rob. Now, what's amazing about these little guys is that the speed at which they grow. Oh, Rob, I want to try to get to the questions here. If, let's see, we've got, okay, they should come up here, okay. Somebody send me a test question and make sure my tablet is working here. Just let me know where you're viewing from. If we have teachers online with us today, students, if the teacher, let me know where your school's located and what grade you are in. And welcome to all of our classes that are watching, wherever you might be located. So the amazing thing about young eagles is how fast they grow. Now this little guy who's 4 days old came out of the egg on Sunday, and a few hours out of the egg, you know, they're pretty wobbly. People call them bobbleheads because they don't have enough muscular strength to hold themselves up. But after the first day, they're strong enough to sit up and get fed fish. And fish is their favorite food. It's high protein and high moisture. And for the next 3 months, these guys are going to grow. These little eaglets will grow into juvenile eagles. They'll be the size of the adult in just 3 months. So it's pretty amazing. This little guy's just got his meal finished there. They'll eat for usually about 5-10 minute feedings, about every hour or so. And they'll get fed a dozen times each day or more. Depending on the weather, if it's really raining or blowing hard, the adults might hold off of feeding until the weather improves. But today we've got a beautiful day here, no problems weather-wise. So this little guy's got his fill. And sometime if you're looking at the Eagle cams, by the way, we've got 2 new Eagle cams. They're both streaming on YouTube Live now. And so you can rewind as much as 12 hours and go back and look at something that happened earlier in the day. So that's a nice advantage. Plus we've got increased resolution, so we've got high def and 12-hour rewind now that both of our cameras are streaming on YouTube. And if you want to follow along with all of the comments and questions that come in, the video and the photos, then you can go to outdoorchannel.com/EagleCam. And that's where all of our chat happens. And folks are watching from all around the country and posting updates very regularly, multiple times per hour with whatever happens in the nest. We kind of follow the action, and we've got a great team of folks here. So we want to give you a little update on research. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Migratory Birds Program does aerial video population surveys. And, as we know, our national symbol is a majestic bird, but bald eagles once teetered on the brink of extinction, reaching an all-time low in the 1960s, of 417 known nesting pairs. That's across the whole country. But after decades of protection, the banning of the pesticide DDT, which caused thinning of eggshells, and conservation efforts from partners all around the country, bald eagle populations have flourished, growing to more than an estimated 316,700 individual eagles in the lower 48. Our pilot biologists in the U.S. and Canada and observers surveyed the populations over a 2-year period back in 2019 and 2020. And that's where those numbers came from. In 1963, there were only 417 nesting pairs, but now in 2020, there were over 71,000 nesting pairs. So they've really come back in big numbers. And it's not unusual now to be out on the Potomac or the Shenandoah and see a bald eagle fly across the river. Always a great sight to see with their big, bright white head and tail feathers. So go ahead and send your questions in anytime. Let's see, we've got Hannah Carpenter says, hello, my students were wondering what happened to the previously hatched eggs. Are those eagles tracked? Do they live close by? Good question, Hannah. Well, short answer is we don't know. We don't track those eagles. These eagles have never been banded, and chances are that the young ones, after they fledge, that means they fly out of the nest when they're about 3 months old, they go off and look for new territory on their own. But every now and then, in fact, one of our first videos that we'll show you is a young eagle coming back. Now, we have no way of knowing by looking at them if the eagles that come back to this nest were previous offspring. They could very well be. But in general, young eagles, for the first several years of their lives, disperse, go to new places, and look for territory of their own. When they get to be about 4 or 5 years of age, then they get the white head and tail feathers, and they look for a nest territory, and they look for a mate. So we've got Daima with us from Fish and Wildlife Service in Corpus Christi. Thanks for joining us. Did I miss the monarch butterfly webinar? Yes, you did. That was yesterday, Daima. Sorry about that, but they do the monarch butterfly webinars once a month. So that will be coming up again. And if you email me, randy_robinson@fws.gov, I can send you that, monarch butterfly webinar series. So let's take a look at, thanks for that question, Hannah, and go ahead and send any other questions in that you might have. Let's go ahead and take a look at that first video. This was from Paul Kolnik back on March 21st. And it's a young intruder. Now, by intruder, we mean, the bird might just be curious, but look at, I don't know if we have volume on this. If you can turn the audio up, Rob, it's got some interesting audio to it. There we go. So the male is in the nest. This is the male bird, and he's looking at look at the other birds circling around. The male is not happy. Look at those feathers go up on the back of his neck. He does not want that other bird near the nest. And now the other bird may not know any better. It's a young bird, maybe about 2 years old by the looks of his feathers. But Smitty, that's the male that we're looking at, is definitely unhappy with having a strange bird. Now Smitty's protecting the eggs. He's putting his wings over the eggs. The bird is a juvenile that we're looking at. No white head, no white tail feathers. And the juvenile is probably just curious. Maybe he's hungry, but Smitty doesn't want any parts of him, and so he chases him off the nest. And right back to, at this time they were incubating the eggs right there on March 21st. Now the first hatch wasn't until the 26th. So at this point of the video that we're looking at, eggs were being incubated. And you can see the little wiggle that the male does. Both the male and the female have a brood patch, and that's a bare part of their skin, and they like to get that right up against the eggs for maximum warmth. So here's a little bit of a slow motion that Paul did. You can see that young 2-year-old eagle get chased away by the male eagle, and hopefully the young bird has learned his lesson and won't go snooping around a pair of nesting adult eagles again. They just won't tolerate any birds, especially the big bird. Little songbirds they don't care about, but anything big like another eagle, a hawk, an owl, raven, or vultures, those could be predators of the eggs, and so they won't be tolerated. So our next video up, this one was from Deb Steck with Bald Eagles 101. And what we're going to see here, this is again on March 21st, and it would be an egg roll. And these eggs need to get rolled, and the eagles use their beak. And this is the female right here. She's got that big neck, long neck, a bigger head than the male, kind of a little bit of a flat spot on her head, bigger beak, bigger hook on her beak. But she's turning the eggs with her beak, and she's rolling them so they get evenly heated and so the membranes don't stick. And they do that when they're incubating about once every hour. And now you're going to see her do a little bit of a wiggle here to get her breast patch right up against the eggs. It's always kind of fun to watch. And that both the male and the female, I think I mentioned, have a brood patch, I should say, that's on their breast, and that's bare skin. They like to get it right up against the eggs. And then she'll pull some insulation around in there to help keep the eggs warm. So we've got another video coming up next from Deb. And let's see, what are we going to look at here? This is 323. And look how carefully the female gets on these eggs. Look at her talons. She kind of rolls her talons up into a ball, into a fist. She's very careful when she gets on the eggs. And if you look closely, you see her rolling the eggs, but she doesn't want to puncture an egg or injure a young one with her talons, which are very sharp. So that's why she kind of rolls her feet up, kind of makes a fist before she sets down on the eggs. Then she likes to get them in just the right spot, rolls them around a little bit. She also likes to aerate the nest. She'll pull up, especially if it's been raining like it did over the weekend. She will take that grass and nesting material in her beak, pull it up, and then expose it to the air, let the sun and the wind dry it out, and keep it nice and dry. And the adults will also bring in new nesting material. If their bedding in the material or in the nest gets very wet, they're going to bring in new material that they gather up from around the field. And you'll see them fly in with talons full of grass every now and then to replenish what they have. So our next video, let's see, will be from March 26th. This would be from Paul Kolnik. And this would be, we think, our first, let's see, no, I'm sorry, back it up a little bit on the teleprompter, if you would, Brett. What we're looking at here is the 25th, and this is from Deb, and this is signs of a hatch. Now, we've seen in past years that when the male, Smitty there, brings in a fish, which he just did, that could be a delivery. He might think that it's time for a hatch, and in this case he was right. Again, this was the day before the hatch. And listen to the female there. She's making these noises, kind of a screeching noise. And it's kind of, you notice she's got her feathers ruffled up on her back. And that means that she wants that fish and she's gonna claim it for herself. Watch what she does. While she's doing that, I'll say hello to Jackie out in Sherwood, Oregon. And Mrs. Potts says, greetings from STAR students, North Jefferson Elementary first graders. We are glad to have you with us. And I know you all came up with some interesting names for the eaglets that you sent us. And if you want to put those two names into the chat room, I'll read those off. But you saw just a little bit ago there how Bella came, the female, went over and claimed that fish. She kind of hunched over it. That was a nice sized fish that was brought in there. This again was the day before the hatch. And the female always gets first dibs on the fish brought in. And whatever's left over, the male might get a little bit, but female's gonna claim it. She does about 80%, 75, 80% of the feeding, but the male does feed as well, and we'll see some of that in a little while in some of our upcoming videos. But that's the female's way of selling, that's my fish, and I'm gonna use it for the eggs. Okay, now we have coming up on March 26th, this is from Paul Kolnik, and this is our first view of what we call the pip, and that's when the beak of the little eaglet inside, or the hatchling, first starts to come out. And if you look very closely, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a dark spot on that egg. I think we'll see it in a little bit when it gets turned. Eaglets have a egg tooth, it's called. It's just basically, it's a little bump or little sharp spot. There's the black spot on the egg. That's the pip right there in the center of that egg. So this was on the 26th earlier in the day. So that egg tooth is a little bump, sharp spot. That's how they scratch that on the inside of the egg, and then that makes a little bit of a hole or a crack, and that's how they work their way out. And that can take a long time. It can take as much as 12 hours for the young hatchling to get fully out of the egg. It takes a lot of energy. And the yolk is what's inside the egg. The yolk is feeding the young bird while it's in there. In fact, we'll see in a little video we have towards the end, we'll see the remnants of the yolk sac, it's called, on the young bird. I think that'll be our very last video. So thank you for sending that one in, Paul. And there she goes, snuggling up and getting that brood patch again. So here we are a little later in the day on the 26th. This is Awahali Productions. Awahali, by the way, means bald eagle in the Cherokee language. So Awahali sent us a nice composite of what happened on the 26th, and it turned out to be a nice day. You can see some red. This might be placenta left over from the birth of a calf. We don't know, but that was brought into the nest earlier in the day by the eagles. So we're right around 2:13 in the afternoon. This was the past Sunday, and this is, look at what the female is doing. She is taking the egg shell out of the nest, or trying to. She's having a little difficulty holding on to it there. But she does get it up over the edge, and there's our first look at the little guy, the hatchling. We call him. He's just about probably 2 hours old, maybe at this point. So the hatch was right around 2:20. Now this is 4:20 in the afternoon, so 2 hours, let's call it. And there we get our first look. This is about 2 hours later, around 6:30 in the evening. The female, Bella, is bringing over a little piece of fish. He's not quite strong enough to eat yet, but Bella wants to make sure, and she kind of offers it to him. He's not strong enough to stand up yet. I say he, but it could be he or she. We don't know whether the little one is a male or female. At any rate, Bella will eat that piece herself because the little one's just not strong enough to stand up and eat at only 4 hours old. But by the next day it will be, and you can see him kind of bobbling around in there, a little bobblehead. And that's Bella with a piece of, can't tell whether it's fish or meat, but fish is their favorite food. Let's see, Deb Steck is with us from Northern Canada. Welcome, Deb, and thanks for all your nice videos and photos and all your time answering questions online. And let's see, oh yeah, here's the name suggestions from Ms. Pott's class at North Jefferson Elementary. Their name suggestions were Star and or Jefferson. And Jefferson happens to be the county in West Virginia that we're in, and I think Star is the mascot of their school. So those are great name suggestions. And Colleen Brady says, hello from Charlestown. I like the name Jefferson. Okay. Thanks for joining us, Colleen. Now we're looking at the 26th in the evening. You can see at about 5-6 hours old, this little guy's getting stronger and stronger. And Deb made a comment, this was the fastest unseen hatch we'd ever seen because we think the hatch actually started the day before. We just couldn't see it. But Rob, could you bring that preview leg over? I see that, that big foot on the preview monitor. Actually, there it is, yeah. Could you rewind that? Just never mind, we can see it pretty good. Just those big, thick ankles or cankles on the female. That's one way you can tell the female from the male. It's just the thickness of her area of her legs above the talons, much thicker than the males. But here she is, gonna do a little feeding here. And then let's see, what do we have up next? That's the 26th. Yep, that's hatch day right there. There's the little guy rolled over. We got a really quick glimpse of his yolk sac, but we'll get a better one. We've got another video that'll give us a little bit better view in a few minutes. Let's see, up next on our video, we have one that Awa Holly did. It's kind of a funny one. It's a GIF, GIF.
That one's actually not working, sorry.
Oh, it's not, okay. All right, so we had a little technical difficulty with the GIF in there, but you can see it. If you go to the Eagle Cam online, you'll see it. It's the little one getting fed. It's kind of amusing. So up next we have, let's see, let's go to March 27th, and that would be from Awa Holly. It's a day one dual feeding, and if we could turn up the audio on that one, Rob, that's got some interesting audio to it as well. Let's see, while we're bringing that up, I'll say hello to Jackie. Jackie says, love the name Star. And hello, Pam from Charleston, South Carolina. Welcome, thanks for joining us today, folks. And feel free to go ahead and put your questions in anytime into Livestream. And I think that it looks like our Facebook and YouTube links might be having some technical difficulties. So we apologize for that if you're trying to get on Facebook or YouTube Live. If you can't do that, go to livestream.com/NCTC and you should be able to get on there. That's what we're looking at live. And so hello, Brenda from Largo, Florida. Welcome. So our next video, let's see, that's March 30th we've got up there. 26. Okay. Okay, great. So this is Awa Holly. This is from the 26th. Oh yeah, this is, that's the egg with the pip in it right there that was highlighted. And we'll see that little hatch video again. You can see her getting on the egg. Now, here's the part where she's going to bring the eggshell out of the nest. And Pam is asking, what is the best guess on the next hatch? Well, Pam, this is day 40. If this is indeed egg 2 that we're looking at, you know, we don't know which egg actually hatched, whether that was the first laid on the one that was laid on February 18th, or if it was the one laid on February 15th. So even if it's the second one, this would be day 40. So if that egg does not hatch today or tomorrow, it is likely not going to hatch. It would be unviable, infertile. You know, we have no way of knowing and never will know what would have happened to it. Some eggs just don't hatch. You know, in past years, like I said, this nest has been here for 20 years now. We've had as many as 3 eggs in the nest, and all 3 eggs hatched. All 3 birds grew up healthy, and all 3 fledged. Been multiple years where we've had 3. Other years we've had 2. Other years we've had 1. So you never know. But yes, if we don't see the egg hatch today or tomorrow, then it's probably not going to hatch. But the other little guy is 4 days old and doing well, and we'll watch him grow for the next 3 months. Jen says hello from Pennsylvania. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Okay, now we've got, so March 27th. Let's see that dual feeding, Rob, if we can. We're going to have both the male and the female double teaming it up to feed the little guy. And if you can bring the audio up, I think I'm hearing it in here. So the male is on the left as we're looking, and the female is on the right. I'll try to be a little bit quiet so you can hear. The female is doing some whining. And I'm just guessing, I don't understand eagle talk, but I think what she's saying is, I'm feeding the little one. She's saying this to the male. I'm feeding the little one. You might be giving him pieces that are too big or something. See how she's got her feathers raised on her back? That's another sign she's a little bit ticked off at the male. Not too much, but he's going to take the hint and back off a little bit. But yeah, you can see the male on the left is a little bit smaller. His neck is a little, and his head are a little bit shorter. His legs are a little bit thinner above the talons. So now, let's see, we are looking at, let's see if we can go to day 20, or March 28th on day 2 of the young one. And there's a nice view. The light is nice. This is like later in the afternoon, the sun gets behind the camera, and that's when the nicest views of the nest always come up, when the sun is behind, and you can get some really nice light. And that's the female that's walking across in front of us, and she's just picked up that piece of whatever it was. I couldn't tell. There's the little one. He's in this video, he's 2 days old. So this would have been from the 28th. And Johnny McFarland's on from Broomfield, Colorado. Said he's watched this nest since the days of Liberty and Bell. Glad to have you with us, Johnny. Yeah, Liberty and Bell were the original pair of eagles that, you know, built the nest started it in 2003. But our new pair, Bella, came in about 2018. So she's a relatively new female, been here about 5 years. And Liberty's been here since about 2011. Mark says hello from Buffalo, New York. And Jackie says, yeah, you can really see the size difference between Bella and Smitty. Yeah, Pam says, poor Smitty, he tries so hard to help. He does. He's a good parent. So let's see. We have, I think, one more video clip to show. This would be from March 28th. And this is from Deb. And it is a feeding of the 2-day-old eaglet. And Rob, if you could start that over just again, if you don't mind. It's in the very beginning we see his talons in the egg sac. He kind of rolls around on his belly, if I'm looking at the right video. Oh, there it is. Yeah, you got it on the preview monitor, Rob. That's it. Okay, here we go. Now, look quickly, look closely. You see that little black spot on his belly? That's the egg yolk. Right there's a nice close-up. That's the yolk sac scar. So that's where inside the egg, the little bird was attached to the yolk, and that's what nourished the bird while they were in the egg. And we can just see that little yolk sac scar, as it's called, a little bit on its belly. It'll disappear, it'll go away completely. But it's sort of like a belly button on a human in a sense. In other words, that's where they got their nourishment from when they were in the egg and feeding off of the yolk. But we got a real quick view of his talons there as well. And the talons and the beak on these young ones grow fast. So you will be amazed if you watch this every day. You're going to see that little eaglet get a little bigger each and every day, because he's going to be eating a lot and feeding and sleeping and eating and feeding and sleeping. And it's just amazing that in 3 months he's going to grow from being big enough to fit in the palm of your hand to being a full-size adult eagle. In 2 weeks from now, when we have our next program on April 13th, if all goes well, we think that that young one will be about the size of a pigeon or a small chicken, and a couple weeks after that it'll be the size of a big chicken, and so on and so forth. They grow amazingly fast. So join us again on April 13th for our next Live from the Eagle's Nest broadcast. Let me just check and see if I have any more questions before we sign off. Oh, Jackie's asking, what is the size of the nest itself? It's about 8 feet across and about 5 feet deep, and we do have a wooden platform below it. It is, it's kind of a crude, just made out of sticks and logs. We put that there a few years ago in case the nest should fall or fail. That'll give them a little place to start off from. You can't see it on the camera because it's about 30 feet below the nest. And Colleen's asking, if it's not viable, what happens to the egg? It will just kind of get buried in the nest, Colleen. Eagles generally, they don't like to put anything over the edge because, you know, whether it's an egg that didn't hatch or, you know, a piece of fish or whatever, because it could attract raccoons or any other animals to the tree below the nest, and they don't want to do anything to attract animals that might smell things below the nest. So it'll stay in the nest. It'll get covered over with grass eventually and become part of the nest. Kind of becomes like a big compost pile in a sense. And Valerie says, humans feed off yolk as well while the umbilical cord is forming. Yes, very true. And I believe that is all our questions for today. So again, thank you very much for joining us. Continue enjoying the Eagle Cam. Again, you can watch the close-up or the wide-angle view on YouTube on the Outdoor channel. And we'll see you next time on April 13th.